So I've wanted to check out the Hitman series for quite a long time now. From playing stealthy games like Assassin's Creed and Ghost of Tsushima, Hitman always seemed like it narrowed down on the core aspect of both of those games. For example, having a different location each time and being ordered to take down a target in any way you want to go about. After playing Hitman 3, it's definitely like that, where the Hitman games are a lot more linear and smaller because it's a set of missions that all follow the same sandbox formula and freedom of having a target to take down. It's not a giant open world nor a lengthy game, but I really like it this way, and I'll go more in depth with this later on. So let's start off with the story of Hitman 3 with no spoilers, which I'd like to do first just because it isn't a giant part of the game. As I mentioned, it's basically a selection of missions with a cinematic beforehand, which most of the time is simply in order for what you'll be doing and who the targets are. Though even this is more than the previous games, which didn't have this style of cutscenes. They were there before each mission, but they were only a slideshow of pictures with a running commentary. The story in Hitman 3 feels like it's way more immersive from this change in cutscenes, and that's just alone where it's just the same as many other games where there's actual movement and it's in real time. They also make it more clear about why and what you're doing, which gives the player a bit more of a reasoning and purpose for them playing, which wasn't really as emphasized in the previous games. Overall, the story is the most prominent in Hitman 3, which I liked. This still doesn't mean it's a massive thing, and as everyone knows, the actual gameplay and mission style is probably the core aspect of this game. While it may have been nice to go more in depth, by no means did I expect it to, because it's mostly Agent 47 mission to take down targets, like usual. I still enjoyed it, and it was fun to follow between each location, and it breaks up the pace. I can't see why anyone would dislike the narrative other than them wanting a bit more, have it be a bit more complex and in-depth. It also wraps up the overall story really well, and of course the entire World of Assassination Trilogy, which is the collection of the 3 main games. It has some twists and turns, and I wasn't disappointed by the ending in any way. I think they tied it up in the best way. And another side of the game which isn't really changed is the gameplay. Now this is yet another thing I expected. A lot of people are aware of the fun and linear gameplay formula of Hitman 3, which I went over. The freedom of taking down a target in a sandbox mission style. I don't think anyone thought they would completely overhaul it and change it completely, especially after the changes in the previous games. And with this being a part of the trilogy, it would be a bit weird if the 3 and final game was nothing alike. As well as the short length of the game, which the same goes with the story. It's only 8 hours long, and that's at a slow pace. I actually played it again and completed it in 2 hours, so it still would have been nice to see just some slight changes and additions to make it feel a bit more updated. I know all 3 entries can pretty much be released as one whole game now, but they obviously wanted to spread them out through the years, and we would have waited a long time for them to finish it all. But that is basically what it feels like. Even on the main menu, it has the other games with all the missions from them. You just have to buy the games first. There's only minor changes, and it still would have been nice to see more. The most used one being the camera, which can scan and hack interactive objects like opening vents and windows, etc. I used it quite a few times. While it might not be the most exciting and game-changing feature, it was cool to use, and as I didn't expect them to really change the gameplay that much, I was fine with this. But the mission designs are great, and what I was most excited for when going into the game. There really is just so many ways to go about eliminating your target and plan out your route, as well as you being able to gain hints from the various story arcs, which then lead into a way to reach your target, where the target might be having a conversation, for example, or an item that helps you get through a restricted area. The gunplay is fairly simple, and it really is best to try to be stealthy, which I always did. There's actually a good selection of weapons to try out though. I always did see myself going back to the standard suppressed pistol because it really is the best to use. Not only is it iconic with Agent 47, but it's clean, silent, and just the best in stealth. I only really use the other weapons like SMGs and AKs if I was going in loud. Most of the time that wouldn't be my choice, I just messed up going in silent. Now the main focus is stealth of course, and that's what I only wanted to do, but it would have been nice if they put a bit more time into gunplay for when you do go into loud and open combat. It's like they didn't really think it through and just did it quite basic, because the gameplay isn't known for that. But when you are constantly shooting enemies, it's not very exciting or immersive, and it just would have been cool to have more love put into this side, because I know not everyone is going to be able to pull off being silent every time. When you're in stealth, it is really fun, from subduing enemies and disguising as their clothes to get past restricted areas, hiding in wardrobes or bins, as well as hiding bodies in there, throwing numerous objects that become more and more random, from coins to muffins to bananas. Then there's many objects you can use as weapons to silent take down enemies, like a metal pipe or a crowbar, but even a full-on fire axe, even more ways to integrate the environment around you with many interactive parts like using a crowbar to break off locks from ladders, which of course you can't always do if you don't have one. You can pull levers to drop down high up objects down onto people, kicking off bricks, shooting chandeliers, using sound systems to all be used as a distraction. One of my favourite aspects was the amount of variety and detail put into the level design, each one having a completely different environment, which emphasises that exciting and addictive gameplay even more, because there's now a whole new place to explore and use parts of that environment. The replayability on Hitman 3, but also all the Hitman games, is insane, with tons of different ways to finish a mission, from taking down the targets to just exiting the area. After eliminating my targets, I had to take down guards, which then I had to find a key to then escape on a helicopter, and that was in the first mission, and that's just one of the many ways I could have got away. The level designs had some really great locations, for example a huge mansion in the countryside with bushes to hide in and pipes to climb up, where you can slowly walk across the edges of walls and quickly move past open windows. Although being ordered to take down a single target is still really engaging and has so many ways to do it, it's not always just that. For example, I had to find the case file as well as eliminate the target, which was in the top room of the mansion that had guards everywhere, and then when I did get into the room I then had to push a button on an armchair to find a safe behind a painting, which I then had to figure out a code with clues scattered around the room. Another one being the nightclub mission location, which had hundreds of NPCs but 5 targets in disguise between all of them, so you aren't aware of where they are. You can use their earpieces to listen in on them talking about you, which was really cool. Even the opening mission where you walk along the outside of a giant skyscraper in the clouds after skydiving onto it, just entering the building alone was so cool and a great way to open the game. Lastly, the graphics for the world of Hitman 3 are breathtaking, and the variety and locations really did them justice. I've played a few games from, let's say, post 2020, that being the RE4 remake, RE Village, AC Mirage, and this game, and you can definitely tell when they were released just from the visuals alone. They all have something about them where I know they all released very recently. The mansion mission and the start of the nightclub mission just reminded me of RE4 remake. The lighting is incredible and really looks best in those shiny areas and bright sun rays beaming through the windows, and the game held up extremely well for me at least. I also haven't heard of many performance issues from others online, with smooth gameplay and consistently high FPS throughout my playthrough. Bugs were also fine, the only one I remember being where there's a crowd of NPCs and they start to clip into each other, which isn't crazy. Now, while Hitman 3 is near enough the same from Hitman 2 in terms of new additions to gameplay, and even though it is more present than minimal story depth, even if it was the exact same and just carried on with more content, I think I would still recommend Hitman 3. It has that linear formula of open sandbox missions to freely choose how you want to take down the targets, which is what Hitman is all about, and I was not disappointed in this game. I think a lot of people will love this game, the variety and locations, endless ways to plan out the mission by using the environment and objects to your advantage. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the replayability and stealth gameplay is what takes over everything in this game. The only reason I think people wouldn't play the game would be because they're looking for a giant open world RPG game with a 50-hour in-depth story, and of course that isn't like it. But yes, I recommend Hitman 3 in 2023 for sure. It pleasantly surprised me, to be honest, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then let me know by tapping that like button down below, and if you enjoy story video games, then that's what this channel is all about, with a playlist of a series I've done in the description down below. Lastly, if you'd like to support me by becoming a member of the channel and gain access to various perks, then there'll be a join button below or a link in the description to it. Thank you for the support and watching until the very end, I really appreciate it. That was Hitman 3, and bye bye.